This is an elf. This is a Vulcan. This is an elf. This is um, I guess it's what they're calling an elf these days. I'm confused because in all these other fantasy movies we've ever seen, including Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films, elves are long-haired, beautiful people, not short-haired warrior kings and queens. What gives? What's going on here? Well, we're going to dive into that today. I'm Tim Anderson, aka Renville, the bearded dwarven princess, and I'm back once again with the latest Rings of Power rant. And we're going to be diving into this topic. I'm joined by, let's see, Luke's over here, Leia's over here, as usual, my two compadres as we dive into the latest. Grab your boots, let's wade in. Before we get going, again, shout out to all the people who support this channel. You can support as well. Drop a super thanks down below. $2, $5, $10, whatever you feel like contributing. I am your Netflix. I am your Hulu. I am your Disney Plus. So contribute accordingly. And wait till the end. More information on how you can also support in other places as well. In the meantime, let's go over here. There's a great article at Daily Dot. Why do male elves have short hair in Amazon's Lord of the Rings show? Well, god dang it, I'd like to know the answer to this question as well, because every other place we've ever seen them portrayed, they've had long hair. What's interesting, before we dive into this article, there's also a Reddit thread, which I want to point out and says, uh, there's something in here that talks about how the reason they did it is because um, it was cheaper. But it's it's a really good thread here. You should go read through here. It's really cool. But there's also some good comments here about how if you look at this article, for example, from Daily Dot, they talk about how in Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings films and in most Tolkien-influenced fantasy media, elves are portrayed as tall, slim, androgynous figures with pointy ears and long hair. But in Rings of Power, there's a new gender divide among elvish haircuts. Um, so do elves actually have long hair in Tolkien canon? Now here's where you get people who have dramatically different answers. Because on the one hand, we do have multiple descriptions, not just in The Lord of the Rings, which Amazon has the rights to make a show off of, but we also have multiple other descriptions, at least according to this Reddit thread, from other areas. Description of the Tellery from Morgoth's Ring, long hair gleaming like foam in the light beyond the hill. Ingwe had curling golden hair. Finwë and Miriel had long dark hair. Hair of Lord Celeborn was of silver, long and bright, which is in the Fellowship of the Ring. Fingon had long dark hair. The hair of Olwe was long and white. His golden hair flowed shimmering in the wind of his speed, which is Glorfindel. So on and so forth. Lots of mentions here in the supplemental materials, according to this Reddit thread. But the most important thing is that Tolkien never specifically and literally put down on paper all elves have long hair. This is unlike what he did with dwarves, because he absolutely did say that all dwarven women have long beards, because in the appendices it is stated that you cannot tell dwarven women apart from men, neither in stature, nor in appearance, nor in their garb, and is established in The Hobbit and other places where Amazon has the rights to pull from. All dwarves had beards, therefore all dwarven women had beards as well. That's actually written in stone. But Tolkien never actually set down anything to define whether or not elves had long hair as a general rule. Now, whether or not it's because, as the Reddit thread suggests, Amazon was doing it for the budget reasons, they just didn't want to have to spend a bunch of money on wigs and in the costume department, or if it's because they're just trying to define themselves visually and set themselves apart from Peter Jackson's films, we don't really have the answer to that. But the reality is that they have it's not that there's precedence for this. It's just that when we've seen it in other places, as an example, Star Trek, we've long joked about how the Vulcans are elves and the Romulans are dark elves, and the Vulcans and Romulans have short hair in that show, and they're space elves. I mean, let's face it, they're space elves. But in terms of fantasy elves, we've always dealt with long-haired elves. His article has some really interesting stuff in here about how the long-haired elf trope is a great example of how Tolkien's works have been interpreted over time. Elvish hair trends are vaguely described, only vaguely described in the original text, but fans collectively have developed a very specific image of what dwarves look like, creating a feedback loop with other fantasy media like Dungeons and Dragons. And for many people, Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings movies cemented the official aesthetic of Middle-earth, which includes male elves with long hair, hence the backlash against the Rings of Power's haircut. However, I would also go back to, and no, for those of you who are like, you shouldn't be pulling from a Reddit thread, you need to go and do the research and read the source material. And why? I'm just going to pull this because it's confirmation bias, and I'm going to use it to cherry pick my data. Insert cricket noise here somewhere. Tolkien Gateway and other places have mentions about this as well, because Tolkien did write many examples of elven men having long, flowing hair. So even though he didn't necessarily define a rule that says all elven men had long hair, we do see descriptions throughout his works of elven men with long, flowing hair. So I digress. It says here that there's a simple in-universe explanation for why someone like Elrond might have short hair. Since the show takes place thousands of years before Lord of the Rings and fashion trends change, maybe in the second age of Middle-earth, elves just had different haircuts, but that's not necessarily the truth because a lot of the characters that are mentioned here were born and lived throughout the first age and the second age into the third age, and they're mentioned as having long hair throughout, so that doesn't necessarily make sense. Um, oh yeah, beardless female dwarfs. According to Tolkien, all dwarves have beards. This is amazing. Western ideas, okay, both of these hair choices tie into modern Western ideas about gender presentation. Tolkien often described his elves in rather feminine coded terms with words like gracefulness, cleanliness, and beauty. In turn, these descriptions probably influenced the prevailing image of elves as an androgynous race with long hair. If a historical fantasy character is meant to be ethereally beautiful, we just don't expect them to have a crew cut. I would highly, highly, highly agree with that. The only one we see in the show as having long hair is High King Gilgalad, um, and some of the background elves. But all of the main characters, Elrond, Arondir, Finrod, so on and so forth, have short hair. Now, I can't speak to the exact reason they've done this, but I can go back to the way that I like my elves to look. And at the end of the day, when I'm reviewing the show, this is definitely one of those things that's factoring into my um, how I feel about the visuals of the show, because to me, this is very much an elf, and this is very much not. And I see no difference between this right here and this right here. They just don't look elven to me. So, I don't know. That's just how I feel about things. Love to hear your thoughts below. Drop them down there in the comment section. Like, subscribe, hit the bell icon to get more like this. Join us every Monday at 11 a.m. for Mondays in Middle-earth as we read through The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and The Silmarillion. And of course, don't forget to check out the reviews of Rings of Power as I watch the show and leave those reviews here on YouTube. And should you want to support, which hopefully you do, drop a super thanks on this video, whatever amount you feel comfortable with. Join as a member of the Adventurers Guild down there. Head over to our Patreon page. Links are down below. And of course, you can always tune into a live stream and do super chats and stickers there. Happy watching. Love to hear your comments below. Until next time, everybody, stay safe. Happy reading.